Hi, I'm Rocket with Wreckless Blenders and welcome to Musings from Rocket's Cellar. In today's session, I'm going to walk you through some updates with the Fiano. And yes, there's been a lot of updates with the Fiano. We do have a bottling date. We do expect to have it available soon. And there's some pretty amazing things happening with the Fiano. For any of you who made it to the latest curbside and had a chance to try it, we had an overwhelming response of, whoa, I've never had anything like this before. I'll talk to you more about that in a few minutes. I'll walk you through the tasting notes of a Fiano. But first, what I thought we'd do is have a talk about rosé. Now, you've heard me on these musings go on and on about rosé and how I fell in love with rosés and learned about them from going to a wine tasting at the Pebble Beach Food and Wine Festival a number of years ago with a good friend, Gary, who loves rosé. And he was like, come on, you got to go to this tasting. Actually, he didn't say that. I was like, if he's going, I'm going. So I went, and we had a wine tasting from Provence, rosés from Provence. And there was even a red. So just to give it a complete picture, but it went from the different styles of rosés and down to a red. And I learned so much about rosé, and from that time forward, I decided that I was going to give rosés a different look. I was going to approach them as if I didn't know what they were, and man, was I blown away. The interesting thing is a lot of people look at rosé and they think the old, white Zin. It's got that same kind of sweet coloring, and it's not what a good rosé is about. A good rosé really tastes, there's a lot to it, there's depth, and there's interest, and there's color, and there's all these amazing things about it. But the thing you've got to remember is it's really meant to be enjoyed in very approachable ways, like out in the backyard when it's hot. That's really its sweet spot. I will tell you an interesting thing I learned about rosés when doing wine tastings with rosés. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to double teacup at me and say, Rocket, that's not the right way to do it. But I learned this very interesting approach to doing wine tastings with the rosé, and it changed how I've approached them. And that is, you don't have rosé at the beginning of a wine tasting. You have it in the middle or at the end. I was like, what are you talking about? And the winemaker and I were talking, and he's like, look, here's what's happened. At the end, your palate has gone through all this interesting transformation as it's gone through these wines. And now when you put a rosé on your palate, especially if you do the 3-sip rule, by that third sip, you've cleansed your palate, and wow, all the flavors are there, and it's just this clean, crisp moment in time. Now, if you are hanging out with me at one of the curbsides or the tastings, I'll probably serve you something before the rosé. I'll probably drop in a Sangiovese red or a Barbera or something right before I pour you the rosé. And there's this great trick that I learned with our Sangiovese rosé and our Sangiovese red, that if you taste them simultaneously, if you have them, you're doing a side-by-side tasting and you go back and forth, you get this amazing reinforcement of the flavors as you go back and forth. And the nose and all the characteristics just get better and better every time you go from rosé to red, red to rosé. Now, I'm saying all that, and I'm realizing that I'm kind of teasing you because we're pretty much out of the rosé. If we have 3 bottles left at this point, I'd be super surprised. But we are going to make more in the fall. So we're going to get double our allocation of Sangiovese so we can make more of the rosé. Now, I said I'd talk a little bit about how rosé is made. I want to do that now, and I'm going to take you to a friend of mine named Rocket, who's this amazing whiteboarder. He's even got a YouTube channel called Whiteboarding with Rocket, and he's going to talk you through the 2 major ways to make rosé. Rocket, take it away. Hi, I'm Rocket, and welcome to a Whiteboarding with Rocket. In this session, I'm going to show you a little bit about how rosé is made. There are two main ways rosé is made. The first way has to do with leaving the juice and the skins in contact with each other for a period of time. The second way has to do with pressing the grapes before it gets into the fermentation vats. The first one, you harvest your grapes. When you get to the winery, you put the grapes into this thing called the stemmer crusher. And essentially what that does is crushes the grapes, removes the stems, and leaves you with juice and skins that end up in a fermentation vat together. Now, a quick aside here, if you're gonna make red wine, you leave it in that fermentation vat for an extended period of time. A week, 2 weeks, maybe longer. With rosé, what happens is after 3 to 5 days, depending on the amount of color you want in your rosé and the type of grape and all these other kinds of things, you pump out of that fermentation vat into barrel and let it go from there. The second way it is made is you harvest your wines, you put it through the stemmer crusher, but before you go into the fermentation vat, you actually press the grapes. So you squeeze all the juice out of the skins and just the juice ends up into the fermentation vat. You leave it in there for a period of time and then you move it into barrels. Thanks, Rocket. Really appreciate that great overview of how rosé is made. Now, an interesting thing is I will show you right now a couple of the rosés. I'll show you the difference between a rosé that's made with the first style, which is it's on the lees, or it's gone through this process of sitting with the skins for a period of time. And that's how we make our Sangiovese rosé. And so you'll see this gorgeous color, this just depth of just beautiful color. And that's one you'll see often in a rosé that's made with that. That's pretty much the only time you're going to see a rosé that is made with this color is when it is on the skins for a period of time. And I'm going to make you jealous a little bit if you don't have any of this rosé, or if you do, you're probably going to want to have some. But there's this floral and beautiful fruit notes. Oh my God, I get watermelon, but not like any watermelon. I get watermelon on a hot day. It's chilled and it's perfect. It's the heart of the watermelon and you bite into it and it's just like that. I get that out of the nose. Oh, and I get all these floral notes like honeysuckle and oh my goodness gracious. Well, anyway, so that is a rosé made with the first style, which is to leave the juice on the skins for a period of time. This is a rosé made in the first style. This is from Provence, which is a world famous location for rosés, and it's much lighter in color. So if you compare these two, you're going to see a big difference in color. And so this one, as soon as it's harvested, it goes into the stemmer crusher and they just press the grapes right then. And then, so you're only getting just this minimal skin contact, if at all, really. It's just the pressing process. And so these are the two kinds of rosés. Now what you're gonna get, what I get, let me just qualify that, is in this one, I get super light, fresh, bright, crisp, just all those kinds of things right there. With this one, I get all this fruit and it's just this beautiful experience. Now, both of them have their place. I'm not saying one's better than the other. Well, yeah, I'm saying the Wreckless is better. I am not impartial. I can tell you that right now. And I find this just to be more approachable as a rosé. This white one, or the lighter one, I find to be really crisp, and this would be great as a starter. So I would have this later in a tasting. I'd have this earlier in a tasting. This would go white to this straight away. Now I'm giving you all of this because I want to talk to you about a third way to make a rosé. And this is a way we discovered as the Wreckless Blenders. Now the third way happens to do with small wineries who have a limited capacity of barrels. And in this case, what happens is when you get new barrels and you think that they're going to be just fine for a white wine, and it turns out that they were red wine barrels, and you get a little bit of color in your white wine. So all of this has been about coming to the idea that our Fiano has a rosé blush to it. And it happens to be because we put the Fiano in a red wine barrel. Now, I'm looking a little sheepish, but my God, it's amazing. The flavors did not get influenced by this. It was just the color. So let me give you an idea what that looks like. Here is the Provence rosé. So this is made with that second way where you press right away. Here is the Fiano, and this is made when you put the Fiano in red wine barrels and you leave it there for a little bit of time. And you wonder, why is the Fiano turning this gorgeous golden color? Why has the Fiano got a little bit of a red wine, a little bit of a blush? So let's talk about the Fiano and how it tastes. So the very first thing you want to be aware of is this does not map to anything you've tasted before unless you've tasted a Fiano. So if you like Chardonnay, this doesn't map to Chardonnay. If you like Sauvignon Blanc, this doesn't map to Sauvignon Blanc. So we've looked for different things from Burgundy and from different parts of France and different parts of Italy, and this has got its own set of flavors. Now, in this case, immediately you get lemon, and it's this beautiful, almost Meyer lemon flavors in the nose, and a little bit of zest, and oh my gosh, and some floral notes that are a little bit of honeysuckle. Yeah, it's just like something else going on. But I will tell you, when you first taste this, you're definitely going to go, I don't understand this wine. And that's okay. It's very much like our Touriga and our Quinta. When you first taste those, if you're an American palate, you're kind of going, what? I don't understand this. I'm unable to map this because it's these savory notes and this mushroom and florist floor. Same experience with a Fiano, where you're going to taste it, you're going to be like, I'm not sure about it. But I will tell you this, the 3 sips, more comments than most comments over when people have tasted this have been, I'm surprised how much I like this, or wow, that's way different and really good. These are comments from people tasting at the last Curbside events. Now, brightness, like Barbera bright. Like, this is going to go really well with white wine foods. And your traditional white wine foods are fish, lighter vegetables, salads, some pork. I bet this would go really well with a pork. Some lighter chicken dishes, some vegetarian dishes, not the heavy duty ones, not your eggplant, right? That's a much more savory thing. So you could this would probably stand up to that, but that's right about the edge where I'd go, not so sure. It is hard to explain, and it's wonderful. So one more time, let's check it out. Oh, lemon. Oh, God, lemon. It's just, that's the very first thing. There's probably, it's not, so not raspberry. So it's not really fruit forward. So it's not I know lemon's a fruit, but it's not red fruit forward. So you're not getting raspberry or strawberry. Maybe you're getting strawberry. Strawberry in the nose. Yeah. So this is like fresh strawberries, chilled fresh strawberries, just hit the, right out of the farmer's market. So they're bring them home and you chop them up a little bit and you get that burst of smell in your nose. Yeah, that's a great description for this. Boy, the brightness on this thing. So it's got that factor of brightness. And oh yeah. So this will stand up 100% to those really light, bright dishes. Oh my goodness gracious. I so look forward to you having some of this and picking some of this up because it is fantastic. With that, I'm Rocket with Wreckless Blenders, and this has been another Musings from Rocket's Cellar.